every once in a while that TA hocus pocus works.
Let me into my zone. Let me into my zone. Please don't let me into my zone. 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 Please don't let.
Good morning, people of camera number 2. Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. Waking up for a little bit of a later morning over here. And Saturday, what is it? Saturday? Yes, it is Saturday. Hey, have a happy Saturday in your life. It's the weekend, so it's a weekend of fuckery and also opportunity. And I want to follow up from yesterday's analysis, as we did see the move play out that we were speaking about, or at least the first portion of it, perhaps. And I do believe that there is more to come. So we'll get into that in just a second here. Of course, as always, talking about massive triggering points and the blue boxes of peace and prosperity and death and destruction, depending upon which side that you're on. But hey, we here are mostly traders, or at least that's who this channel is focused on. So we don't really care about direction. We just care about trading. Anyways, with that said, it is more fun to be a bear, to be quite serious. So, anyways, with that said, we are on the Krown Trading app right now. It can be found at app.krowntrading.net. It is free, and it is going to be built out more and more and more, of which I'm really excited about this next update coming probably in the next week or so, where we're going to have a chart for the open interest as well as some other metrics, which is going to be incredibly massively useful for not only myself, but I'd imagine other people out there as well. Anyways, with that said, oh, what's this? We have open interest going up as price action goes down, and volume kind of coming up on the lower term timeframes as well. Volatility, we'll get into that in just a bit once we get into the actual charts, but you can probably imagine where that's going, and this is operating exactly how we would expect it to operate, although expectations, terrible word choice right there for myself, but this is the proverbial response to that underlying market dynamic setup. Anyways, I do think that it's also worth mentioning that the fear and greed index has actually ticked down to an 8 from a 12, which is very, very low. I think very few times in the history of Bitcoin we've actually seen it lower than this. So keep that in mind. Also, Bitcoin dominance more or less steady here. And as far as the other market dynamics, obviously going down alongside price action. So what we'd expect to see is pretty much present. So that says that there's unlikely any major, trappy traps going on right now. And with that said, let's get into the live scene right here, right now. I feel like I'm missing some sort of announcement, but probably not. Anyways, whatever. We'll figure it out later. Let's get into some price action right here. And what do you know? Bitcoin daily doodle closing below the critical levels that we spoke about yesterday. 64.50 was shattered, just ticking below there. Initiated the next move down, the next what's it called, target down towards $6,000-ish region, which I do think that we probably have a little bit more further south to go here. But we did say that there was going to be a short-term time frame bounce somewhere around 6,100. I believe that we got pretty much right around there. Let me just check. Yeah, 60.70 on GDAX. What do we have on Stamp? Stamp got down to 60.74. Okay, that's pretty much the same. And we got Mexico coming down to 60.55. So all around the same area, about $50 less than what we were looking for, but that's all good. No problem there. More importantly, now that it is the weekend, what should we expect from this? What has been done to price action as we see all these things start to play out? Well, first and foremost, we are seeing more divergence between the death cross moving averages right here on the daily, and more importantly, as we reject the yellow 21 exponential moving average and get a negative slope on it once again, there is a major implication that we are still playing this out, at least for the time being, and the bots and algos are on the sell side. Now, more importantly, we're going to be closing the 2-day tonight as well, and the 2-day is, or sorry, did we close the 2-day tonight? Yeah, we do close the 2-day tonight, unless if Bitcoin has a rally back above 7,200, which I think is incredibly unlikely right now. We'll look at probabilities a little bit later, but unless we have a rally back above 7,200, we will inevitably get the death cross on the 2-day total time frame confirmed tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And more importantly, or not, maybe not more importantly, but going back to the daily right here, with this last rejection and confirming this is a local high by taking out 64.50-ish region to the downside, we have done something that is very significant here. We have confirmed hidden bearish divergence between this point at the 10th of March when Bitcoin was a little bit above 8,000 and this point more recently right around 6,800-ish region, which I do believe is going to give us the ultimate momentum to actually come back down below 6,000 and probably down into the mid to low 5,000s. Anyways, what's interesting here though, and this is why I don't trust, this is why I look at so many different charts, but spot price action, you see the hidden bearish divergence present just between the 10th of March and where we are right now. But actually, if we go over here to, I believe it was CMEs, it's revealed. No, sorry, it's not revealed on CMEs. What was the chart? Oh yeah, that's right, Japan. Now I haven't done this in a very long time, but someone brought it up last night, and that made me realize that it's actually once again relevant. So Bitcoin versus yen has actually been a really good foresight into the future, as they typically do get a little bit more obvious signals on their charts This was really a big deal in 2018. Then in most of 2019, I stopped kind of watching it a little bit because it was more or less the same. But now it seems to be that Japan is once again kind of foreshadowing moves here. So not only do we have 3 black crows kind of in the making yesterday, which once we looked at it, we actually even took out the low much sooner than U.S. spot price action did yesterday as well. So we were looking at this on Twitch stream. That's what I forgot to mention. We're going to be doing Twitch later tonight, and it's going to be another long stream. Yesterday was like a 5 or 6 hour long stream, and I feel like we can do it again. I just need some food and enough caffeine to keep me going, baby. I had a lot of fun playing Total War and just kind of shooting the shit and watching price action and doing a little bit of trading here and there. Anyways, on Japan, we actually do see massive hidden bearish divergence going all the way back over here, quite literally when Bitcoin was above what would have been $9,000, about $9,200 on spot price action. So I do believe that that's going to give us 3 drives of this, and that's very likely going to give us the momentum to come back down to the low side of the range. I don't necessarily say that this is going to completely shatter to the low below our current lows, but that's when we go back to the U.S. markets right over here, and we look at the bigger picture, of which we've been following up for the last couple weeks. And still, as long as Bitcoin's kind of riding these 2 trend lines, riding these 2 diagonal trend lines, this one to the bottom, which is currently meeting up with our our lower blue box of support, and perhaps even another death and destruction drive right there, and our upside resistance right in over here. As long as we're playing between that, we are in the confines of a rising channel, technically bear flag as well, although I don't think it plays as a bear flag because it would have a different implied move. But the rising channel does have a pretty damn good hit degree of playing out. And if we actually do break below it, which would be conveniently right below our next blue box, which we kind of tested into a little bit last night, although I do think that we're going to get a formal test into it sooner rather than later, probably sometime in this next week. If we do break it again below about 5950-ish region on at the very least a 4-hour total closure, that would initiate a measure move actually to our prior low, somewhere right around about 4200-ish region to 4100-ish region down here. So putting all the puzzle pieces together, what we are seeing is essentially playing out, or sorry, what we've been kind of talking about is essentially playing out. And I don't say that to sound arrogant. I don't say that to sound like, I called it. I knew it was going to happen. No, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is trading. But just so that people who have been tuning into this content for a while can follow up on this and see that while these signals, do flash right in front of your very eyes, sometimes they take a little bit of time to play out, and that's all well and good. Anyways, remember, open interest going up about 40 million from yesterday to today is a good first start. I think that we're going to see that continue to rise as Bitcoin does work its way onwards and forwards, to the south side most likely. And I would now be bearish on Bitcoin, especially as long as we're below 6,700. But that's not very relevant for our low time frames. But even more aggressively, right as long as we're below 6,400 as well on a 4-hour total closing basis. As long as we're below there, I do believe pressure is down, and I do believe that we will see more price action to the downside. However, right now playing out a little bit of an anemic bounce, which I do think is perhaps going to take us a little bit higher, actually maybe even test 6,400. But like I said, as long as we're living below there on closing basis, I am bearish. And I've been bearish, and I am excited to be more bearish in the future, if can be. Anyways, this is the time when all the hodlers tune out. That's fine, baby. It's just you and me now, you and me, and all the traders who are watching this this crazy content. Anyways, I think it's also worth mentioning as well that whenever you see something like this, where you're going to get a death cross almost on the next tick, and then at the very last second, price action just fucking red dildos this way through, well, well, that's usually a good insight. I mean, it's usually a good insight that we're going to see more price action in that, in that direction, as it's very obvious that the bots and algos were kind of presenting the illusion of short-term bullishness, maybe another push back up to like 7,300-ish region, as we said, was possible, but still, cautionary lights kind of flashing in the midst, and at the very last second, negating that. So it was basically a trap for the less sophisticated bots, actually, is what typically is going on there. Now, I can't speak to like the general market because there's a billion players in this market. Well, maybe not a billion players, but quite a few players in this market. But that's essentially what the more sophisticated bots are doing towards the lesser sophisticated algo traders here, and they are going to be paying with spades on the weekend. So with that said, let's check out how our lower time frame oscillators are looking like right now. 4-hour. I'm sure people are calling this a high or low, and I see all people on crypto Twitter talking about how you should be buying like 5,900. Well, good luck with that. Is this potentially a higher low? It could be a higher low in place, and we potentially do have hidden bullish divergence here in play as well. Would that be good enough to send us back up to 6,700? Perhaps, yeah. I think 6,400 is not very far out of the reach. I think that we could very easily test that. But for me, this does make me really consider that Bitcoin could pop back up around here, especially considering that it is a weekend. Now, keep in mind that we actually did confirm a reversal right before the closer on Friday. So that means when the weekend happens, now counter to the week's direction is going to be to the upside. So it actually would make sense that if we are going to have a hunt to the upside, once again, it's going to happen probably during this weekend, as you typically do see very, very annoying price action during the weekend. So I wouldn't mind if we had to move up to 6,400 over the weekend. I wouldn't mind if we had to move up to 6,700 over the weekend, but I'd probably be looking to fade it, assuming that again Bitcoin is more or less closing 4-hour dildos below. I mean, conservatively 6,800, aggressively 6,700-ish region. So I do think it's possible that we could pop back up around there, but and play out this hidden bullish divergence here. But I'm not convinced that this is going to, flip around to being bullish. I think that last rejection on the daily 21 is quite telling, and I do think that we're going to head down. Whether Bitcoin plays out a little bit of a bounce here or not. I mean, we kind of already had a little bit of a bounce to more than $200 is decent enough, but that's really all I say about that. Actually, it's just I don't really mind to move back up here, but if it happens over the weekend, I think that would be pretty damn insightful. That we're probably gonna sell into it and turn back around relatively soon. Also, remember when we were looking at historical volatility percentile yesterday on the 4-hour, especially with specific interest too, we are starting to see this expand once again. So we're seeing this expand slowly from a very low level, which has denoted multi-$1,000 moves in the past, as we spoke about yesterday. Definitely reference yesterday's video if you don't know what I'm talking about, or if you're not interested, then don't. But more importantly, we see that rising up alongside volume's actually not going to be really rising too much right here, because volume's not going to spike until we actually break the rising channel that we're in. But we do see that open interest creeping up a little bit as well as people put on short positions, and that really confirms that the last move to the upside was mostly shorts closing. It's really not that bullish when you see upwards price action based off of shorts closing. Yes, you can get a nice move, and we certainly got some nice moves, but that was always the thing in the back of our minds. I reminded ourselves saying, hey, I'm looking for signs of exhaustion here, because I do, the underlying market dynamics are more so on the bearish side right now. And we're starting to see that play out. Let's see what the 3 hours looking like right now. We see 3-hour momentum oscillator still pointed south, although, well, there's still plenty of room down there. And same thing with 3-hour RSI. We could very easily play out a little bit of hidden bullish divergence, but I don't think that's going to be any sort of meaningful reversal. Just another test back up to former support and test it as resistance, most likely. 2 hours showing resistance right around 6,400-ish region. We also see 2-hour momentum oscillators more or less the same as the 3 and 4 hour. So they're all coming from the same direction. So if we are going to play out a little bit of a bounce this weekend, if we are going to play out a little bit of a bounce, I think that it does happen this weekend actually, and probably somewhere around 6,400-ish region I think is quite reasonable. However, if it pops up there, I'd look for extension actually all the way up to like 6,700-ish region. That's where things actually could change around. So I should talk about what's going to now revert my bias from being bearish overall on the medium and higher term timeframes to once again bullish. And we kind of already discussed it, but getting back above about 6,700, that would be a little bit more of an aggressive way of doing it. I think it actually probably would do it, but more conservatively, and obviously would be just this last local high right here, a little bit above 6,800-ish region, and then I'd actually target a move into the low 7,000s, anywhere between 72 and 7,300 would be very, very likely. What we plotted out before is still very much relevant. This blue box right here, which is now accurately in between the 200 simple and 200 exponential average on the 4-hour digital time frame. How that's strange how that TA weird hocus pocus works out sometimes. And lining up is usually when the good ones happen. Anyways, okay, so while we are here, let's actually go back to the 2-day and let's just look at the last few death crosses and golden crosses that we've seen coming from this time frame. Let me get rid of all these major moving averages, except for the green 55, the purple 200, and the yellow 21. So here's the thing, and here's the way that I play this. here, and here's the way that plays this. So this is actually a very good potential death cross in the making, as again, you know, it needs to be confirmed later tonight, but we do have a nice doji doodle reversal right here, confirmed by continuation below, and we're just waiting for tonight's closure. Now, if tonight closes, like I said, anywhere below about 6,700, we will for sure see these two cross to the downside and confirm the death cross, and this would be essentially your last test, your last chance for love before the inevitable doom once again. And as long as we're below the yellow 21 exponential moving average, I would say that this thing, I would be overall bearish on this asset. Now, going back in time, how does this work? We do see that, well, let's go find some examples, huh? We do see the last time we had a golden cross, Bitcoin was coming out of this consolidation right here, rides the 21. The 21 was a great buy, just like the 21 over here, perhaps even a great sell, although not just necessarily just yet. And Bitcoin goes all the way from 7,500 to about 14,000. Then before that, we have 2018, of course. I think that this one's a damn good example right here. We get the death cross as Bitcoin gets rejected from this high right here. Then slowly but surely at the end of 2018, Bitcoin gets ground down below the yellow 21 exponential moving average. As you can see, that's just showing you that the bots and algos are slowly but surely intensifying their sell programs. And what happens at the very end? We get our last little rejection and then doomsday drop to the floor. And that's essentially what I'm looking for. And by the way, it wasn't until we regained the 21 on an open and closed basis where really the momentum took back up to the upside, even though the low was in, you know, about $500 before then, comparing 3,200 all the way to 3,600. And then we can go all the way back to 2014, 2015, right on over here, and another similar situation as well, getting the death cross during this price action. Bitcoin gets a little bit of a bull trap soon after that, rejection, and then back down below the 21. As long as it's death crossed and below the 21, I play it bearish. And this one right here was very far away from price action, by the way. This one over here, you know, a little bit more efficacious, obviously, as well. After that, soon after that, we get a pretty nasty move from top to bottom of about 60%. And that's also very similar to what we saw in end of 2018 as well. I think this was more so a 50%-ish move from last kind of high to next low. Yeah, 50.5%. So let's just kind of play around with numbers here. Let's just say that, you know, what if this does happen? Would this line up with anything? Assuming that this is going to be our local high, which is technically not confirmed just yet, although it's quite likely. If we were to shave 50% off of price action, you know, at the very least, where that sent us back down to 3450-ish region now, wouldn't it? That's kind of our last accumulation zone from essentially a year ago. And what do you know? This Gap Boy is going to love this one. Hello, Gap Boys. If you have been getting dressed by your mommy in the morning, well, this is what you should be paying attention to. Hello, 3,500 Gap, 3,550 Gap actually right here. You know, is this an actual gap? I would say it's actually not, but it's funny that people always want to talk about the 11,500 Gap, but not about this one down around here. This is so fucking important. If you're in the TA program, and especially for the new people in the TA program, make sure before falling into the fucking meme of gap analysis, which is actually very, very important, to watch the bonus module in the TA program on gap theory and gap trading analysis. So looking at this right here, you know, as always, when it comes down to gaps, there's no time component implied of which one gets tested first or foremost. It's just about which one is more relevant to the current price action. So what's more relevant right now? Well, obviously that one, but neither of them are really relevant right now. What's more relevant is the fact that just the fact that we are, well, actually, that's completely irrelevant to price action right now. We're nowhere near it. We're nowhere fucking near it. There's no way to kind of judge that. Oh, looks like we have some messages on TradingView. That is the absolute worst place to contact me of all time ever. So I would not suggest that. In fact, I just completely ignore those. Anyways, let's go over here to the weekly. I'm curious how CME's closed the weekly. CME's closed the weekly a little bit on a sour note. I wouldn't say this is like not obviously bearish here. It's also not obviously bullish either. But more importantly, we're going to see the yellow 21 and the green 55 cross to the downside, and this to me looks likely like a rejection, as that's kind of your implied test of it. Same thing on spot price action right here, especially if we close the weekly tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time below 6,000. This is going to be a very obvious rejection, and that's going to very likely give us the impetus to head back down below 6,000, or sorry, not just below 6,000, but actually probably even below 5,000 overall. But still take it one step at a time. And speaking of one step at a time, let's go back onto our lower term timeframes and talk about how this could look like if we do actually initiate the next sort of targeted region. Which let me by the way put in a nice horizontal for our low timeframes bounce area right here at 61, which I think we had on Mexico before. Yeah, okay, yeah, we already have it there. And I guess this one works just as well. But I have my rising channel on my GDAX chart. Anyways, so for right now, looking for a little bit of a bouncy bounce. However, if Bitcoin does come back down and tests this blue box formally at 5950-ish region and breaks it, where would I look for price action to come down to next? Well, I'd look for the next blue box of death and destruction to likely get tested. This one's down around 5500, which is, by the way, the 200 simple on the weekly, I believe it is. I'd look for a small bounce there, or even maybe a medium-term time frame bounce there, as a lot of people like to play the 200 simple. However, coming back down to test that for a third time in 3 weeks is not bullish in any way, shape, or form. And I do believe that I do believe that bounce, probably a low time frame bounce at the very least, will get sold into. Maybe we pop back up to even test a channel all the way back in the low 6,000s, nice even number. But overall, I don't have a strong opinion on that. I have a strong opinion on that bounce failing, and then Bitcoin will come down very likely to the 5150-ish region right here, at which point I think we'll have another chance to salvage this one. That one very likely is going to be a medium-term time frame bounce, but I do believe that at that point we will initiate the measure move on this rising channel, and whatever bounce that we do see from this region maybe brings back up to the 200 simple on the weekly at 55. We're getting way into fucking TA hocus pocus. This isn't even TA right now. This is crystal ball bullshit. So understand that I'm just doing this for fun right now. This is obviously price action matters more, and the way that I trade is you pretty much know the way that I trade based upon these blue boxes, or at least probably have a good idea for the people who are more creative out there. But yes, I would believe that we'd probably initiate the full on measure move all the way down here. Next bounce probably somewhere around 4,800 on short-term time frames, then again at about 4,600, and then all the way down here. And that point, I potentially could look for a major reversal down around there. You could potentially look for a major reversal right around here as well. It's always a possibility, right? But the bias would be more and more set. And what we want to see is maybe not the bulls of this market, but what traders want to see is they want to see open interest go up with that, as well as volume going up with it. Now, I don't expect volume to spike up here until we actually break this area at about 5950-ish region. So for right now, the channel does look efficacious, as we do see nice parallel lines and price action acting well through them. And more importantly, we do see that volume signature is confirming, as well as volatility signature as well confirming that, and that tells me that it is more or less likely to play that way. Okay, what else we want to look at? The greatest secret of the world. Here you go. All right, so now that we got all the fucking moon boys and doom boys out of this bitch, or actually the doom boys are probably still here, but fair enough. Hey, there you go. Have some fucking 12-hour Stokes in your life, and what do you know? We have this trend line still playing out. I think I had this trend line marked off on Mexico. Yes, indeed it is. Now, here's the thing. We do have a competing trend line for our support levels down around the low side right here, and that looks like a symmetrical triangle over the long term now, doesn't it? But that also does imply that we're going to come down all the way to the bearish control zone and test around there. So we got plenty of room to the downside here. And I would be looking for that to likely play out. 12-hour RSI back below the exponential, and playing out massive hidden bearish divergence going all the way back to the $8,000 level. Again, I think it's better seen on like the daily and 2-day perhaps, but same sort of synopsis there. Okay, what else do we want to talk about? I do want to make this video a little bit on the shorter side. What about a 3-day? Ooh, we did close a 3-day dildo last night as well. I do like this look for the bears on the 3-day dildo, confirming a local high right here. It looks like, although it's not as local high-ish as a daily would look like, but actually, no, it's not. But we are seeing the yellow 21 cross to the downside of the 200 exponential moving average. That's what kind of sent off. Whoopsies. That's what sent off Bitcoin back at 6,000 from November 2018 all the way down, similar to what we were looking at before. And I do believe we might have another example in 2014, 2015. Yeah, very, very similar one right on over here. So a little bit more of a long-standing moving average, which, typically is going to hold a little bit more weight, but basically operate in the same way as a 2-day death cross. That is kind of impending later tonight. Anyways, Bitcoin rallying up now. Let's see if we can test that 6,400-ish number, and then play it by ear after that. Alrighty, cool. So what else do we want to talk about? Already 23 minutes in. Let's go look at probabilities lining up with these areas, and let's see. So yesterday was the first time, or actually like the last week or so, the probabilities and my analysis have actually not been meeting up all that well with each other. But I'm happy to say that I'm better than math. No, just kidding. Of course not. It just so happened that time, more often than not, math is going to be, it's just math. The probability for the downside was still pretty significant as well. So it's not that it didn't work. It's just that it was saying that the upside was a little bit more likely. I said the downside was more likely, and realistically, well, I think we know what happened. Anyways, okay, so let's get back onto this right here. Let's see. So remember, the critical areas that we want to be cognizant of going forwards here for the big downside is going to be about 59.50. So I don't think that this is going to be very likely that we break this today. Let's see what it looks like on a 12-hour. Probability is going to be less than 15% in this next 2 hours and 51 minutes when the next closure happens. So that's also going to be the 4 hour as well. Now we can see that the rings are starting to squeeze to the downside. So I do think that that angles the probability towards the downside overall, but it does say that it's quite unlikely that we get that move today. And I would more or less agree. If we go out the whole way to the daily total close, it would be about a little bit less than a 30% chance, which is pretty fucking massive actually. And that actually does look like something that, I mean, that's a probability that's worth paying attention to. So probably not in this next on this next 12-hour closure, but perhaps yes on this next daily total closure. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. It's a picture that I'm painting right here, and more importantly, we're seeing these guys squeeze back to the downside, which I do like. Now to the upside, let's talk about this as well. The upside is a little bit more tricky because we have short-term 6,400, but that doesn't change around any of the biases from the medium and higher term timeframes, only low-term timeframes. And if we do look at it on daily, it's going to be quite a high probability, almost 44%. So I do think that we're going to test it. The question is, do we actually exceed it? And I would say probably, unlikely. Let's go to the one that actually does matter. Let's cut it to the middle because I've been saying 67 and 6,800. Let's just call it 6,750. Although technically speaking, it probably should be 6,800-ish region just to err on the side of caution because trend is now confirmed to the downside once again. And we do see a little bit less than 26% chance. So the probabilities are on the downside here. And I would agree with that more or less. I think that it would be quite unlikely that we do head back up around here, even test around there. To be quite honest with you, I think 6,400 is really, really likely. And if we break above 6,400, then yes, 67 to 6,800 is within sight. But I would be skeptical there again. Look at that as another opportunity perhaps as well. Okay, cool. All right, so we got that. Let's go check out traditional markets. Traditional markets, SPY closing on a little bit of a down note yesterday. I do think that we're going to confirm a local high here as well. And I do think that this is a rejection of the yellow 21. And I do think that next week we are going to come all the way back down to 230-ish region. So this week we said that SPY was likely to pop back up and test around 265. We actually almost got that. We got up to 263, and that's close enough as far as I'm concerned. And then more importantly, the weekly closed not the way that you'd want to see for continuation to the upside. We got a rejection of the 200 simple and 200 exponential moving average all at the same price point. To me, this looks very, very bad, and I do believe that we will be testing back down at the very least to 235 coming into next week. And while I would wait for that to happen and wait to analyze it, I don't have a strong, I don't think it's gonna hold. Just put it bluntly, just fucking say it, man. I don't think that the lows are in for traditional markets. I don't think that the lows are in for Bitcoin as well. And I think that both these markets are just a massive conglomeration of retailer induced hopium. We have something like this coming in. We kind of do actually, just kind of playing around with trend lines there, and less important than the overall implications of this. Remember, we do have the monthly close coming in 2 days, I think it is. The last trading day of the month is going to be the 31st, so we will be able to see the monthly close relatively soon. Let's see how it's shaping up right now. If it were to close like this, I would not look at that as good. I would look at it as still a continuation to the downside, most likely. Can play out bounces in between. Let's look at Bitcoin as well. As far as that's concerned, as long as we're below the 21, I am overall bearish on the macro timeframes, long-term timeframes. Okay, what else do we want to look at? See how Germany closed the week. Pretty nasty as well. Looks like another rejection to me as well. Fair enough. What about gold? How did gold close the week? Gold closed the week quite well. So gold is really the only one that's acting as an actual hedge right now. Gold closing above all major moving averages, I do think is going to give it another test to its prior high at 1700-ish region over these next couple weeks, and probably going to give it I think this, and I'm not a gold fan. I think that Peter Schiff is kind of silly, but hey, a good chart is a good chart, and have to call a spade, and this one is a spade. I got a lot of shit for being bearish on Bitcoin last week, so I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that. Just kidding. Anyways, dumb social shit, man. All I should care about is my P&L at the end of the day. I'm breaking my own rules. All right, so I've got to call myself out. And please, you in the comments, you watching this video, feel free to be the one to call me out as well, because I do think that it's important. That is a big benefit of having a community when people can say, can like check you, you know? Like Krown, you're getting a little bit too arrogant. Krown, you're getting a little bit too silly over here. Krown, I like what you said over here. Krown, I hate you and your hair sucks. That I don't want to hear. Anyways, what else do we want to look at? I think that does it. I think that does it for that. What about GBDC? GBDC closing as a rejection of the 200 simple and 200 exponential moving average. Pretty nasty as well. Although not as bad as spot price action closed, funnily enough. Let's go check out some of the other market leaders and then send this baby off. Let's go check out Mr. Buterol first and foremost. I said this one's coming back down to 122. We got down to 125. You can see very obviously that it's still playing out some sort of a rising wedge, rising channel bear flag. And while it probably does pop back up, maybe even test around 132, maybe even 133, I think that I would be playing this one to the downside as long as we are below the 21 on the daily. More importantly, the weekly is not looking hot, baby. Not looking hot. By the way, I do not have log scale on right now, which is why the charts look extra shitty, because that's exactly what these charts should be. That's exactly what they should represent right now, because they are extra shitty right now. You know, people want to look at it like this. Realistically, it's actually like this. Now, the reason why I think that this is more important, I think that this is less damning for Bitcoin is because Bitcoin's actually kind of stood the test of time now, and it has been holding in this range more or less okay. But, you know, really think about what moving average means. You know, when we're looking at a 200-week moving average, we're looking at the average of price action over the last 200 weeks on a simple moving average, just as simple as it gets, like quite literally closing price plus closing price plus closing price 200 times divided by 200. And there you go. What is it? It's about 5,500. So we can say that consistently Bitcoin for the last, I mean, we got 50 weeks in a year. So it's for the last, 4 years, Bitcoin has been on an average price of about, you know, $5,500, which is quite relevant, and I do think that the linear scale accurately represents this now. But if you put the linear scale on, you know, Litecoin or Buterol or pretty much any altcoin, it looks something like this, which is significantly less impressive, I think. But again, that's a little bit more of an opinion related thing. Let's go back into Mr. Buterol and tear this baby apart. Looks very similar on the lower term timeframes to Bitcoin. Maybe pops back up to like I said, 132. If Bitcoin gets another test up to like 67, I would look for Buterol at 137 region. But still kind of with the overall bearish bias, even though we do have hidden bullish evidence on this one. So it probably does pop up a little bit more, to be fair. Same thing with Mrs. Litecoin, it looks like a little bit more on the weaker side, to be fair. Let's see, what does a daily look like? Yeah, daily close below all major moving averages, so it is the weakest one of the bunch right now. You can still see the same sort of rising channel bear flag right here, and I do think that if Bitcoin drops below 6,000, you're gonna see this one come down to 35.25 and probably lower over time. What else do we have? Maybe Ripple's nipples over here. Wrecked. Bad. It's a bad, and we have hidden bearish evidence all the way back over when it was literally above 21 cents. That's problematic. Should we do more? Hello, altcoin boys. Do you want to do some more? Let's go look at Link, because people get really mad when you don't look at Link after you're looking at it for a while. But Link actually does, fair enough, do different things, or at least it's the most likely coin to do a different thing than the rest of the market. However, is it doing something different right now? Over the long term, yes, absolutely. It's got one of the most phenomenal charts long term. However, short term, is it? No, it's not. And as long as it's below the 21 at 250 or 255, really, I'm overall bearish on it, looking for a retest of the prior lows and probably beyond over time. All right, is that pretty much it? Did we cover everything? Cardano's rallying, right? It's got new technology. It's got the blockchain. It's got smart contracts. It's got a shitty as fuck chart. It's got a whole lot of... Wait. My volume wasn't on. Krown, Krown, you're going to be so wrong about Cardano. This is the shit that I've been hearing for the last 2 years. Well, it hasn't gone as low as I thought it was going to go, but fair enough. A dead heartbeat of a chart. And it probably actually does move up here. It actually probably is going to rally a little bit to 500 Satoshis overall. I think it actually kind of is in it, you know, it is in its range, but this is versus Satoshis. And with Bitcoin going down, that means that its dollar value is going down as well. Alrighty, great. Okay, cool. Let's go to store some more shit coins. Why don't we? Nah, we have better things to do like laundry. Oh god damn. I'm curious where Japan is on the weekly as well. Let's go back to this. Oh, we don't actually have enough data, but I should remind myself that weekly momentum oscillators are so bullish that they forgot to turn up. Okay. All right. This video's already been 34 minutes long. I think we pissed off everyone enough already. And let's go back to the lower term time frames. Start to mock this baby off. So, you know, does Bitcoin play out a little bit more of a bounce here to the upside? I think that's quite likely actually. 6,400 certainly very much within reason. If Bitcoin starts closing above 6,400, even like an hourly dildo, I will look for extension all the way up to 67-ish region. That's where the medium and higher term time frames could change around, but I don't think that that's happening. But because it is a weekly, or sorry, because it is a weekend, do have to be cognizant of the fuckery that could be abound. Now, if Bitcoin did close above 6,800, we'll call it, then I would look for an extension all the way up $500 more to 72 to 7,300 bucks, and fulfill the top side trend line test up here. By the same token, assuming that doesn't happen and we pop back down around here, I do believe that the next test on 6,100 probably, well, I don't have a strong opinion on whether it breaks or not. Overall, I have a strong opinion on whether it breaks, but maybe not on the next test. But the crux of this message is that this is the critical level right here at around 5,950 and rising. So it will be 6,000 like early next week, I think. And if we do break that one, I would look for ultimately Bitcoin to come all the way back down to 4,200-ish region with bounces along the ways. Could things change around along the way? Sure, yes, but we'll take it one step at a time as it does happen. So for right now, you know, congratulations to all the bears, congratulations to all the shorts. More importantly, congratulations to all the traders just making shit tons of money. Absolutely fucking love it. I love hearing stories like that. I sincerely actually do. My favorite type of message is when someone says, "Hey man, you know, I just you know, I've been studying technical analysis for a while now, and I've been learning how to trade for a while now, and I'm finally seeing my efforts come to fruition, and that's fucking cool because, well, that's what life is all about. It's like picking a skill, getting better at it, and then feeling good because that's basically how your autonomous reward systems are kind of built up. So yeah, man, really happy for those people. It's a lot better than messages like, "Hey man, could you tell me what to do in this situation?" It's like, oh fuck me. Anyways, that's going to do it for me right now. I'm going to be signing off. I'll be on Twitch earlier today as well. You're more than welcome to join on in. Understand that, you know, the focus is on gaming, although we will be looking at price action as well. You know, on the interim, we got a good game to kind of float in between. But, you know, I understand that some people are just not going to be interested in that, and that's completely fine. That's completely cool. But hey, if you are and you just want to hang out and you just want to shoot the shit, you're more than welcome to join on in. The link is in the description below. I will be signing off now. I want to wish you all once again have an amazingly excellent rest of your Saturday afternoon from myself over here in Helsinki, Finland. It's nice and bright. We can't go outside. We're on quarantine. Take care, and until next time.